Imagine being so isolated that the nearest doctor is a 7-day trip across the open ocean. Picture an island where the entire population could comfortably fit in a movie theater and where mail shows up just a few times a year. In our world of 8 billion people, constantly connected by satellites and fiber optic cables, it's hard to believe there are still corners of the planet almost completely cut off. These are the ultimate human outposts. But what's it really like to live at the very edge of the map? Today we're heading to the most remote islands on Earth to find some incredible stories of isolation, survival, and even a few unsolved mysteries. First up, we're going to what is officially the single most remote island on the planet, Bouvet Island. Tucked away in the freezing South Atlantic, this place is an uninhabited volcanic wasteland owned by Norway. It's almost completely covered by a glacier, and to call it isolated is an understatement. The nearest landmass is Antarctica, over 1,700 kilometers south, but the nearest people are more than 2,200 kilometers away. Discovered way back in 1739, this icebound fortress is so hard to get to, with sheer cliffs rising from a raging sea, that just landing on it is a monumental feat. In fact, for decades after its discovery, people couldn't find it again, and many wrote it off as a phantom island. Today, it's a protected nature reserve, a kingdom of penguins and seals, with the only human touch being an automated weather station. But Bouvet has a seriously creepy secret. In 1964, an expedition finally made it ashore and found something that made no sense: an abandoned lifeboat just floating in a lagoon. The boat had no markings, there was no sign of a shipwreck, and no trace of people, dead or alive. How did a lifeboat get to the world's most remote island? And what happened to its crew? To this day, no one has a clue. It's a chilling reminder of how unforgiving this place can be, and even caught Hollywood's eye, becoming the setting for the movie Alien vs. Predator. Next, let's head east to the southern Indian Ocean, to an archipelago so stark and windswept it earned the nickname the Desolation Islands. This is the Kerguelen Islands, a French territory that's closer to Antarctica than any real civilization. The nearest populated landmass, Madagascar, is over 3,300 kilometers away. The main island, Grande Terre, is a maze of fjords, black volcanic beaches, and rugged plateaus, all towered over by the massive Cook Glacier. There are no native trees here, and the weather is brutal. Winds can blast through at 200 kilometers per hour. You can see why 19th century whalers took one look and called it Desolation Island. But it isn't completely empty. France runs a permanent scientific research station, Port-au-Français, where a rotating crew of 45 to 120 scientists and engineers lives. There are no airports. The only way in or out is a 6-day journey on a supply ship that braves the rough seas from Réunion Island just 4 times a year. For the handful of people here, life is all about science, studying everything from geology to the island's huge colonies of penguins and seals. It's a place where nature, in its most raw form, is both the thing you study and the warden of your beautiful prison. We're about to visit islands that are actually, against all odds, permanently inhabited. The stories of how people ended up there and how they managed to stay are truly mind-blowing. If you're enjoying this trip to the world's most isolated spots, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. We explore the most extreme and mysterious corners of the globe every week, and you don't want to miss where we're going next. Now we're off to the immense Pacific Ocean. Nearly 5,000 kilometers from the closest continent, you'll find Pitcairn Island, Britain's last territory in the Pacific. This tiny volcanic speck is home to one of the smallest populations on Earth, usually somewhere between 35 and 50 people. And here's the wild part. Almost every single one of them is a direct descendant of the famous mutineers from the HMS Bounty. Back in 1790, a crew of mutineers led by Fletcher Christian, along with their Tahitian companions, needed to disappear. They were looking for the most isolated place on Earth to hide from the British Navy, and they found it on Pitcairn. With its steep cliffs and no safe harbor, it was the perfect hideout. To make sure they were never found, they burned their ship, the Bounty, in the bay, stranding themselves forever. You can still see the ship's remains in the water today. Life on Pitcairn is tough. The island is only reachable by sea, and the supply ship from New Zealand visits just a few times a year. The population is getting older, as many young people leave for jobs and education elsewhere. Still, the people of Pitcairn carry on in their only settlement, Adamstown. They make a living from tourism, selling their famous local honey and handmade crafts, all while keeping the story of their dramatic past alive. The island is a living monument to one of history's greatest naval dramas, a society literally born from rebellion. A bit further east in the Pacific, there's an island famous for its towering, mysterious statues, Easter Island, or Rapa Nui. It's a territory of Chile, lying over 3,700 kilometers off the South American coast. While it has an airport and a population of about 7,750, making it much more connected than our other islands, its extreme isolation gave birth to one of the most fascinating and puzzling cultures in history. Settled by Polynesians around 1200 AD, the Rapa Nui society famously carved and erected nearly 1,000 colossal stone statues known as moai. These giants, some weighing over 80 tons, were moved for miles across the island from the quarry where they were carved. It was an incredible feat of engineering that researchers are still debating. According to the oral traditions of the Rapa Nui people, the statues simply walked into place. But the story of Rapa Nui is also seen as a warning. The common belief is that the society collapsed after destroying its environment, leading to internal warfare that caused the people to topple all of the standing moai by the 1800s. The population shrank dramatically after these conflicts and devastating slave raids. Today, the islanders are working to revive their culture, and tourism centered on the mystery of the moai is their lifeblood. Rapa Nui is a powerful symbol of human creativity, but also of the fragile line between civilization and self-destruction. And finally, our #1 destination, the place officially recognized as the most remote inhabited island in the world, Tristan da Cunha. This tiny circular volcano is a British territory in the middle of the South Atlantic. The nearest continent, Africa, is a mind-boggling 2,800 kilometers away. Its closest inhabited neighbor, the island of St. Helena, is over 2,400 kilometers away. There is no airport. The only way to get to Tristan is on a fishing or research boat from Cape Town, a sea voyage that takes 7 to 10 days on some of the roughest water on Earth. There are only about 10 of these trips scheduled each year. The island is home to a community of around 222 people, all living in the only settlement, Edinburgh of the Seven Seas. Because they've been isolated for centuries, the entire population shares just a handful of last names. Life is simple and self-reliant, based on farming and fishing for the valuable Tristan rock lobster. There's one school, one hospital, one pub, and one grocery store. They don't take credit cards. If there's a medical emergency too big for their small hospital, the patient has to wait for the next boat and survive that week-long journey to a hospital in South Africa. This community has seen it all, including a volcanic eruption in 1961 that forced everyone to evacuate to England. But here's the most amazing part. Despite being offered a new life, almost every single islander chose to return to their isolated rock in 1963. They value their unique culture, their safety, and their incredible sense of community more than anything. They are, quite literally, a world all their own. From the ghostly empty shores of Bouvet to the unbreakable community on Tristan da Cunha, these remote islands push the very limits of what it means to be human. They are living laboratories of culture, survival, and evolution. In a time when technology makes the world feel smaller every day, These places are a powerful reminder that our planet is still vast, mysterious, and home to people living lives most of us can barely even imagine. Their stories show just how adaptable the human spirit can be, finding a way to build a home in the most extreme corners of the earth. So, what do you think? Could you live somewhere this isolated? Or does being that disconnected from the world sound more like a nightmare than a paradise? Let us know down in the comments. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey to the edges of the world.